The honourable member Prince Albert.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to speak on the softwood lumber dispute between the United States and Canada and over $8 billion in tariffs the Americans have collected from Canadian businesses. As advisor to the Leader of the Official Opposition on Canada-U.S. relations, I wish to give my unique perspective on what I've learned in Washington and the challenges this Liberal government has created in reaching a negotiated deal. This situation, Mr. Speaker, is one of the Prime Minister's own doing and is reflective of his lack of care for the forestry sector as a whole and thousands of Canadians who are impacted. The $8 billion in tariffs that have been collected are a direct result of the Liberal government's failure to prioritize Canadian workers, Indigenous communities, and our natural resource sector. It didn't need to be like that, Madam Speaker. There is a desire on both sides of the border to resolve this matter as Americans and Canadians recognize the importance of the industry. There is no excuse for not reaching a negotiated deal. Over the last 42 years, Canada, the United States, has reached agreements on softwood lumber. The most recent agreement, Softwood Lumber Agreement 5, was in place from 2006 to 2016. SLA 5 was in place because the former Conservative government understood the importance of the forestry sector to Canada. We understood that the forestry sector was mutually beneficial for both Canada and the United States, and when we went to Washington, we made sure that we worked collaboratively with our American partners to reach an agreement. This Liberal government has done the exact opposite, Madam Speaker. They have completely ignored the situation and refused to address the dispute at the highest levels of government. When the agreement expired in 2016, this Liberal government should have made it a priority to negotiate a resolution with the Americans, but instead, they delayed and looked the other way. As the years passed, the Honourable Ministers of International Trade blamed the American government for claiming there was no desire to resolve the dispute in Washington. Well, Mr. Speaker, I wish to contest that point. Over the years, American legislators, associations, and companies have publicly made it quite clear that they want the softwood lumber dispute resolved, and for good reasons. The United States doesn't produce enough lumber for their own needs. In a letter dated May 17, 2021, addressed to the United States Trade Representative Catherine Tai, over 90 members of both parties in the House of Representatives urged the U.S. federal government to resolve the matter with the Government of Canada, saying, "We now call upon you to represent American interests in this critical issue by pursuing a balanced agreement with Canada. We as members of Congress stand ready to discuss these issues and potential solutions with you." Additionally, on May 12 in 2021, members of the United States Senate Committee to the Appropriations wrote to the Secretary of Commerce and USTR, Tai, saying, "We write to urge you to take action to resolve the long-standing trade dispute between U.S. and Canada on softwood lumber, and that these imports are vital to support the ongoing housing boom." It hasn't been American denial. It has been this Liberal government's refusal to acknowledge the issue at the highest levels of government and effectively advocate for a solution to the softwood dispute. Most interesting, Madam Speaker, is that the Standing Committee of International Trade published a report in November of 2023 analyzing the problem and possible remedies. During those hearings, Government of Canada officials noted that the Minister of International Trade raised the issue of current dispute directly with President Biden. She raised the issue. And according to officials of Global Affairs, the Prime Minister also emphasized harm of American tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber producers and employees. Yet, in the report, recommendation number 4 states, achieving an agreement with the United States regarding trade in softwood lumber products ultimately will occur only through direct head-to-head government negotiations. The softwood lumber dispute should be made a high-level priority in dealings with the U.S. They had the President of the United States in Ottawa last March, and yet again, this Liberal government failed to advocate for Canadian jobs and the Canadian interests adequately. So, Madam Speaker, what this report says, what the timelines speak to, and what the situation we currently find ourselves in demonstrates is one in which the Prime Minister has routinely failed to resolve the dispute and fails to make the interests of Canadian workers a priority when dealing with the United States. The previous Conservative government successfully negotiated a deal, and yet this Prime Minister has failed to provide the attention to the dispute desperately required over the last 5 years. Why has he continued to fail negotiating a deal if these Canadian jobs are so important to the Prime Minister? And why does this Liberal government not give the issue the attention it desperately needs? The softwood lumber dispute will not resolve itself overnight. It requires actual leadership to get it done. And Madam Speaker, we know as the Conservatives we can get it done. We also know this Prime Minister is just not worth the cost.